Well, good afternoon, my fishing and outdoor brethren. It's a gorgeous day here in the Texas Panhandle, with the exception of the wind. The wind is blowing about 45 miles an hour, and if you live in the Texas Panhandle, you know that's about average and usual for this time of year. So I'm not overly surprised, a little bit disappointed. I'll be working in the garden a little bit later today and running around this tractor. It's gonna be a little bit miserable, but that's okay. We'll just do what we have to do. We're gonna go right ahead and go into part 3 of this transom rebuild. I'll be brief, but let me explain just a couple of things real quick. The original Coosa board that we put in on the last video, we cut that into 3 pieces. And so we had 2 wings on each side of the transom that we put in, and then we had a middle piece that we placed in afterwards. We laminated all that in there with epoxy and let it sit, let it harden, and then the next piece is what this part 3 is going to be about. So we cut the wings smaller this time and put those in on the sides to kind of solidify that small piece that we didn't cut out all the way. And then we put a larger sheet behind that, and the purpose of that larger sheet is to span over the cuts that we made previously. And then also that larger sheet will hold the bulk of the weight, well, all the weight from the motor. And that's the purpose of having that larger sheet over the smaller sheet before it. And so that'll solidify that transom, and it takes the place of having a solid transom from the whole thing being like poured in there like you would like a sea cast or something. This will be a similar effect, and you just don't want your cuts to be in the same spot. You want them to overlap, and that'll give it some extra strength and rigidity. We took a sheet of fiberglass, and then we placed that sheet in between the 2 Coosa boards. Once you get that fiberglass in there and you got it matted in, you got some epoxy on it, you just throw that next bit of Coosa board in there, and then you clamp it down and you let it sit, and that's it. And then we'll come back and we'll have to finish it in part 4, maybe part 5, depending on how the epoxy and the gel coat restoration goes. So here's the first part of part 3. I apologize for some of the wind noise. It was super windy that day. We had a front that came through and I just couldn't help it. So that's what it is. I apologize for that, and hope you enjoy. All right, on to the next step. We got this thing clamped and set overnight, and it's solid as rock. So the next step is to build this up, and in this lip we'll just put another piece of this Coosa board to build out this transom. So what we got right now is a piece of fiberglass material that'll go in between the 2 sheets of Coosa board, and we're going to do the woven side in or out.
The woven side goes in.
Woven side goes in. All right, so we'll cut this out, make sure it fits, and then we'll mix up the epoxy to go on top of it.
Yep. Okay.
All right, we mixed up about 2 ounces. You said 2 ounces.
2 ounces, 3 squirts.
Okay.
And I sanded this off.
Okay.
The high spots on it, and I washed it to get the amine blush. There'll be some amine blush on epoxy, and you have to wash it off. It just takes water.
Okay. And this is the same 2-part epoxy, correct?
Yes.
All right. No silica added.
No silica, just epoxy. This will stick the fabric up here where we can keep it here.
Guys will ask about dry time. You say probably 15 minutes or so before this gets...
something like that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, we changed a little bit of the 80 yesterday, and probably 65 right now.
That'll be to our advantage. It'll stay, give us a little bit more working time. Well, the matte side in. I don't know that it makes a lot of difference because it's a sandwich kind of a deal.
Okay.
So I don't know.
There you go. Gonna be sticky enough?
I hope so. Let's turn it over. Let's see if it works any better. Okay, let me put a little bit more on the cake. Work like it is.
working better than I thought it was going to.
It'll come together.
How long will this take to set?
It'll take a little while. As cool as it is, several minutes. We can go ahead and get our piece of board ready.
Okay. Okay, a couple of things real quick. The first thing is that fiberglass sheet. We didn't know for sure if it was woven side in or matte side in. I don't think it really matters. The key is to allowing enough time on your epoxy for it to become tacky. It was really cool that day. We only got up to about 65 and the wind was blowing, and we didn't allow enough time for it to get sticky enough for that fiberglass sheet to stick up there and then to put more epoxy on afterwards. So I think if we would have waited just a little bit longer, it would have stuck just fine. The way it was, we ended up having to turn it over and then put it in there, and we had to remove the bubbles, and it was kind of a pain in the rear. If I was going to do it again, and I plan to do it again on the boat from hell, that's something that's coming up, but I plan to do that again. I will probably just let it sit long enough where I can get that fiberglass sheet to stick up there and not have to work at it so much and so hard, because it really was a pain to get that in there. The next sheet of Coosa board that we're going to put in, it requires a little bit of sanding. It wasn't wide enough to get the whole sheet in there as it is, and so what we did was we had an angle grinder. We just put a large sander on there, and then we just kind of pulled it across it and made it a little bit thinner. It wasn't much. I mean, maybe 1/8 of an inch all the way around it, so it didn't take a whole lot, but we wanted it to be a little bit thinner, and that was the way that we opted to do it. I'm going to show you one piece of that. I'm not going to show you all of it because you get the idea, and I won't bore you with that particular detail. We skipped a few steps. Just talk us through what you're doing here.
Okay, these are the inside pieces for the last part. So we decided just to take these and fill up that gap and make the board that is going to be on the outside as big as possible, the most surface areas we can possibly have, and it'll be a little bit easier to fit that way as well. And we have time this evening. It's pretty cool, and this stuff is lasting a while, so in a big time crunch. So we'll just fit these in here, and I'll wet these out, and I'll put a little bit of epoxy, some thickened epoxy, in a bag, and then we'll tap them into place. Hopefully they'll go into place real good.
So this is the epoxy mixed up with the silica.
Yeah.
And you said it's kind of the consistency of peanut butter.
This will be a little bit. This is more of a heavy syrup, so I've got to run it through that bag. So it's not going to be near as heavy, as thick as the mixture was last night.
So the principle is like a baker putting icing through the bag.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Almost too thick, isn't it?
Yep. Let's see if she fits.
Good snug fit.
Yep, good snug fit.
We just clamp that guy in there.
Yeah, we'll take it back out, put a little bit more epoxy in on top on the back side, and then we'll clamp it.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, that's the end of part 3. What we do from here is we just put a straight board over the Coosa board, just a piece of 2x4 or something. A little trick, take you a piece of plastic and put over that 2x4, and that way your 2x4 board doesn't epoxy itself to the Coosa board transom. It would be a disaster trying to get that thing off of there. So just a little word to the wise, put you some plastic over that 2x4 before you clamp it. That'll make sure that it doesn't stick. And then that's it. We just put that 2x4 over there with the plastic. We put a clamp on it, and we let that thing set. We put a tarp over it. We put a heater on it, and then we go on from there. It's solid as a rock. It looks great. This is a wonderful way to do this. If you're trying to do this in the future, this is fairly inexpensive. It's fairly easy. It requires a little bit of elbow grease, but it's really not that big of a deal. So I hope you guys enjoy part 3. Part 4, maybe part 5 is coming up. Hopefully in the next week or so, we're going to get to this and get it done. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Tomorrow's supposed to be gorgeous. Tomorrow is Sunday, and then Monday's supposed to be pretty as well. I'm probably going to go fish a couple of days, and I'll be sure to get some video over the next couple of days, just doing a little bit of pre-spawn fishing here in the Texas Panhandle. It is time. It's getting warm, and I'm really excited to get out and go. Also, next week, I'm going to pull the boat out and get it all cleaned up. I've got a product that I think is the absolute best when it comes to compound, polish, and wax all in one kit. I think it's the best as far as affordability goes and being able to go out and buy it and not have to order it. I think it's the best one. So I'm going to do that next week, so stay tuned for that. Appreciate you guys tuning in. God bless y'all. Have a great, safe afternoon, and we will catch you next time.